just talk us through what's the changes announced yesterday are going to actually mean for your twin cities?
Well, importantly, we'll be able to have workers coming from Melbourne and going into our border zones without having to isolate the things that they were doing before. So it frees up the opportunities to access services and doctors and nurses and any other special services we need. But more importantly, it allows our agricultural industry and other industries across our border region to access services out of Melbourne and the greater Victorian area without them having to self-isolate and go through the arduous process that they were going through before. So it's something we actually put a lot of pressure on them to do, so it's great to see that's come to fruition.
Is there a way to measure the disruption you have had with borders up, I suppose, even just this last time?
Oh, look, we're doing a lot of work in the background right now, and hopefully we'll have it to hand by the end of the week through our business chambers and through the Murray River Tourism Group to understand what the significant impacts have been this time, and certainly they have been significant. Look, I think, again, as communities across the border region, across Australia, I mean, we're all a little bit perplexed about why they can hold an Australian Open, yet we can't get international students, we can't get agricultural workers, we can't get people who are needed in our country who actually are productive. I mean, I don't know who's making these decisions, to be honest, but that then puts a stain on every other decision they make. So, we're a little bit confused, but this is a relief in sight, but the real opportunity is to get rid of the border controls altogether.
So this was the issue, wasn't it? We saw the border put up on the Victorian side this time. Last time it was the New South Wales side. There were at least a lot of cases there, and I know you were making points around, well, how many cases are there regionally? The concern was always whether people would cross and try to go from Melbourne to Sydney. But this time around, it was such a low threshold. What answers were you getting when you were saying, hey, shouldn't Victoria be able to manage the relatively low risk from New South Wales without the sort of restrictions that were put in place?
Oh, look, I'm on record as saying I think Daniel's a little bit gun-shy, and I understand 112, 111 days in lockdown in Melbourne was not ideal. But they've trialled so many derivatives of these border closures. They had the ring of steel, which had more holes in it than chook wire and a chook fence. But ultimately, this was not required. And I think, again, it was a political posturing event. And, again, we are being disadvantaged because of it. But, look, to Gladys's point, she gave them time to resolve their issues with their contact tracing and the problems that were happening in Victoria at the time. This time there was no discretion applied to it. And I think the millions of dollars that are being spent on this border closure, those police, they've literally closed police stations in Greater Melbourne to accommodate the closure of our borders. Now, where's the data and where's the information to support that? There isn't any. And like I said before, they're allowing 1,400, 1,500 tennis players and associated staff into Melbourne right now. Who makes those decisions? I mean, that compromises our opportunities to have our sport, our productivity and our nation back on track because of a tennis tournament. They closed the Grand Prix. Why is it so important to give our overindulged professional tennis players an event at the behest of our nation? I mean, I just don't get it. And I don't think the community is responding well to that, and I'm certainly not responding well to it.
The good news today is that the restrictions have eased, but you'd have to be concerned, I guess, the threshold at which restrictions came into place, that this will happen again.
Well, that's the other issue we raised before. What is the threshold? What is the roadmap? And what are the triggers for Daniel to bring it in? And there's even talk about if things get out of control, and look, I'm not hoping they do, because I think, again, hopefully they have got this under control. It doesn't appear on face value that the tennis players have been really good in the past. I mean, Novak Djokovic having a party in Croatia, that went well, but ultimately I hope it stays at what it is, because it's important for us as a nation to get back on track. But if it gets to a point where they start getting infections again, and you've got South African virus, you've got a UK virus, you've got so many derivatives of this virus now. I mean, there's no saying that Gladys won't say we're shutting down the border again. And yet again, the border regions of New South Wales and Victoria will be impacted. And, I just think that I'm confused about who's making these major decisions, because the federal government would have been involved in this tournament decision. And ultimately, the decisions we want to know about are who let the Ruby Princess in, why was that allowed, what about hotel quarantine, and how has this happened? I mean, there's just a roller coast of bad decisions being made, and our communities of Australia are being neglected. And I'm a little bit confused, as we are across our nation right now.
We'll see what the, if you like, appetite for some risks does entail down the track. Let's hope your community can get back to what it does well, being those twin cities. Kevin Mack, thanks for your time today.